Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, and I'm here to do a Halloween video. This video is about the deduction board in Halloween H2O. Fellow YouTuber at Everyday Horror, Ryan Bowers, was mentioning this. Shout out to him. He'd given me a shout out. I had talked about the deduction board in a podcast we had done together, so I figured I'd give a deeper analysis of it. So, for those who don't know, what is a deduction board? A deduction board is a place you put all your evidence on or display your evidence on. Every piece of evidence that you've ever gathered concerning a case or cases or one specific case. For example, the Halloween murders or Michael Myers in general. So, Loomis would have gathered not just well, we see all newspaper clippings on the deduction board that he had, all the newspaper clippings he had, but he would have gathered uh, police photos, photos of crime scene evidence, and we actually saw that on the board, by the way, which is really cool. Um, s- uh, Sketch drawings of the killer, eyewitness, where an eyewitness maybe described who the killer was. Um, what the killer was wearing, and you actually see a drawing of Michael's mask. By the way, there's no year on it in Halloween H2O, so I don't believe that's from 1978. I actually do believe that's from a more recent account of where of an actual eyewitness. I don't think that's from Laurie Strode. I think that's from elsewhere. Now that's my opinion on that, but from a deduction board standpoint, because some people might ask, well, why would Loomis have a deduction board? What's the big deal of having one? You got to understand, Loomis comes from a time where you know there was no YouTube, there was no technology of filming stuff to where you could literally record it to the point of recording somebody and keeping the recording intact enough. So what detectives would have would be a deduction board where they would gather their clues and store their clues. And here's another thing. Loomis comes from the same era, the same era the Shadow came from, and the Shadow did use a deduction board. So no, I'm not saying Loomis was the Shadow or an agent of him. They just come from the same era. And here's the thing too. Loomis Loomis is a criminal psychologist. Here's this man who's probably worked with cops prior. That's why he's again. I think that's another reason why he's so comfortable around and introducing himself to Sheriff Brackett, because this is not the first cop he's ever worked with. No, I'm not saying he worked with another cop on Myers prior. I think he worked on criminal cases when he was just a student. I don't think he just has a degree in psychology. I think he has his degree in criminal psychology. Um, so that's why Loomis is so comfortable talking to Brackett about Myers. Hey, this guy's pure evil. He, 15 years ago, and we all know the speech. But so the deduction board is what Loomis gathers his clues on. That room, the what you see on the wall, that's his deduction board. That whole room, really, and biggest part of that wall. Now, the key question would be, when did Michael start his reign of murdering again? Because that would be important to the Halloween H2O plot point. Remember, John Tate is 17 in 1998, so 10 would be 1988. Um, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 1981, John Tate would be born. So, at the beginning of, at the tail end of 1980, beginning and in the beginning of 1981, I think that's when Dr. Loomis helped Laurie Strode fake her death. And so that fall, there's no Michael Myers in Haddonfield, and Loomis is like, well, this must have worked, right? So, and that fall is when Loomis, is hearing about 7 kids, teenagers, dead in Houston, Texas. And Loomis hears, they sort of talk about on the media, the local, the state police or the Texas Rangers get on the television, and Loomis is watching this on TV and he's listening. Yes, one girl's throat was slashed. There were no survivors. There were no eyewitnesses. We don't have, and he's listening to how they were killed, and it fits Michael's MO. So he goes down there, and again, the first attack would have happened in 1981. There's no survivors, so all he has to go on is what the police are telling him and what the newspaper reports are also saying. So he gets the photographer who took the pictures. He tells them about his theory that it's this killer who he believed what did not die in the hospital explosion. He's honest with them, and I think Loomis would have been honest with anybody who he was talking to about Michael Myers. He's upfront with them. He tells them, hey, I think this here is your killer, this Michael Audrey Myers. And they say, well, isn't he dead? And Loomis tells them, hey, they never found his body. Um, so no, I don't know why they've Haddonfield, yes, to sort of, and this is a part of it too. This is where I think the one thing H20 doesn't leave out. I think John Tate sort of hints at this. John Tate says to Laurie, you said you watched him burn. I think, though Laurie believes Michael's still out there and knows deep down in her heart, yes, that son of a bitch is still alive, I think it was reported that Michael did die. Yeah, sure, they never found his body, but again, they're just going to say, well, he burned up in a fire too. So that's why they never found his body. I think they ruled Michael Myers dead. So when Loomis says this to the police, they sort of somewhat humor him, like, okay, you can look around and you can't take actual evidence, but you can take photos. And the photos or you can get photos from where the press took, and he actually gets photos. So now we do see photos of other murders up on the wall, and I do think those are other locations of murders. Again, Texas, uh, Wisconsin, New York, Iowa, Denver, Florida. I think there are many places Michael struck between 1981 and 1998. And some people might say, well, how many survivors were there for each murder? So all those years, those murders, I think, honestly happened. And you want to know how many survivors I think there was? Now, this is outside of Laurie. So remember, Laurie Strode survives the 1978 murders. So that's one survivor of Michael Myers. There's only one other survivor of the murders that are taking place between 81 and 1998. Yes, one. So 2 whole survivors. Michael has become that efficient of a killer. And you might say, well, why does no one believe this person who survived? It's very simple. The person who survived has history of schizophrenia. So that would be the reason a lot of people don't believe her until one Dr. Sam Loomis pays this young lady a visit. And that's where we get the sketch from. The girl can actually sketch. She can actually draw. That drawing we see of the mask, I think it is of the one and only other survivor of one Michael Audrey Myers in Halloween H20. The deduction board in Halloween H20, yes, Ryan Bowers, yes, Darnell Weeks, my friends. It is a beautiful thing, and it is a work of art, and it is very, very unappreciated. And it should be more appreciated. As somebody who loves true crime too, and somebody who, loves the shadow, there, it really it sort of melts my heart that they had that in H2O. It's like, wow, that's really, really cool. So that I hope I've explained this really, really well. Um, Please let me know what you guys think. I'll tag these gentlemen in. Links to their channel will be in the description box to Everyday Horror and to the Myers Fan 25. Again, I want to thank them and also thank you guys. You guys have a great, great, great weekend. Tonight, me and Patrick McRae are going to talk about the 2004 unaired pilot of Dark Shadows.